What happens is when the grape flowers that are all on that stem or on the rachis, they hopefully they all bloom at the same time. Everything's synchronous. It's all going on at the same time because we're going to harvest that cluster all at the same time. We're not just going to pluck berries off as they ripen. If you get weather conditions that allow the cluster to begin, like the most advanced flowers start to bloom, and then you get colder weather, it stops that process. But the clock is already ticking on the ones that have already started to create a seed. So they keep on moving along. But as far as giving off the pollen and pollinizing and starting that process, it's like you've set off a race and you've only let some of the runners go, and then you hold the rest back, and now you let a few more go when it warms up, and then stop the rest, and then let the rest go when it finally warms up. So you end up with a very spread out race, and you have some very advanced, some in the middle, and some way behind. They never really catch up. The last guys might appear to catch up when they're most of the way done, and so from far away it seems like they're all kind of bunched up, but on closer examination they're not. So you might have large berries and small berries when they're still green and hard, and they're very early in their process. What this tells me, when I see bloom take a long period of time, I know I'm going to have great unevenness. Sometimes within clusters, other times between clusters. One cluster may be in a part of the vine where it was warmer, it was a few days, that bud broke dormancy earlier in the spring, so it's already got a little bit of an advance, but now it's just been accentuated by this very important physiological point, which is bloom time. So what we had in 2009 is that we had some cold weather that suddenly came in and let the runners spread out for certain varieties in certain vineyard blocks. And when I see this, it just tells me it's going to be a more difficult time to, when it comes to thinning, as the grapes are coloring later in the season, to get a little more evenness, because we won't be able to truly discern or easily discern ripe stuff from underripe stuff at my sorting table. They're all going to be purple. They're all going to look pretty much the same. If there's quite a bit of difference, then some of those underripe clusters will be harder. They'll be more firm, and then I'll ask people on the sorting table to taste some grapes. When in doubt, taste it. And if it tastes really sour and nasty, then it's not ripe yet. But that's very fatiguing, and we shouldn't. There's a better point to do that, which is when it's on the vine, back in say sometime in August, when the coloring begins. It's very easy because it's visual. You can go out there and you can see what's green and what is beginning to color, and you pick a particular spot when you want to truncate that curve of development. You just want to say, okay, everything that is not yet colored, we're going to get rid of it. The problem is, if you have a lot of unevenness in a low crop year, it's very difficult to feel good about doing that from an economic standpoint. But that's weighed against the quality of the crop you're going to have. If you're only selling grapes to somebody, and the grapes are going to be mixed with a lot of other grapes, no one will know that you didn't do that. So you deliver this stuff, and if the average sugar levels, it's a reasonable way that maybe larger operations and medium-sized operations determine quality of the grapes, it'll slip through that, and so those grapes will be considered just as good as any others. But then somehow the wine doesn't turn out as good as it did in other years. People scratch their heads and say, well, it's not as good a vintage. I don't find that acceptable, at least. And at our level, we're able to, and the growers that we work closely with, we're able to make every year as good as it can be. So that we're not going to let that get in our way, and it requires a whole lot more work, and there's much less reward. But in the long run, I think it's the right thing to do, for operations our size.
So it really depends on temperature at the time of flowering. And I would assume you've got very different dates for different grapes and when they flower. So you could have a year that could be dead perfect, or I should say, can you have a year that would be dead perfect for Pinot Noir, but trouble for the Chardonnay next to it because the plants are coming on within 2 weeks, 5 days.
That's a perfect representation of that. You know, if you have an area that's relatively homogeneous in its weather patterns, but you have different varieties, it'll be more of a varietal thing. If you have, I would say, a region that is variable in its soils, topography, and varietals, it becomes very, very complex. You can't generalize as to this variety got it, you know, or had an issue, because that variety, say Chardonnay, for example, might be in very different areas. So that vine or that block of vines will be susceptible to this issue depending on, well, just differentially. So it's very, very complicated. It's frustrating to me to hear people defining the quality of a vintage by one variety in a different area, or just making a blanket statement for, say, the whole state of California or North Coast, you know, whatever, Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino, because we tend to want to generalize things. And anyway, you know, just so we can try to understand it, but it's much more complex than that. And Sonoma County is just a real strong example of that because of the diversity of varieties and site.